Let's talk about the most popular position in the NFL because let us get into the quarterbacks. And we've done a couple of top 5 rankings so far. We've done front sevens, we've done running backs, but we want to talk about the top 10 quarterbacks because 5, it's not enough. There's too many quarterbacks to talk about. Too many people will be like, how dare you leave this person out? It's like, a lot of guys that can be in the top 5. But let's get into it. Matt, I'm going to have you go first. Who are your top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL?
So I'll go 10-1, and then I'll toss in a couple honorable mentions at the end and also bring up a couple tiers as well. So 10-1, Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, Matthew Stafford, Russell Wilson, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. And I have one tier right after Russell Wilson. But I also I really like Matthew Stafford. I kind of want to put Stafford in there, but it's also hard. It's like, the career on the Lions, right? So that's why it's hard to kind of put him there. But I do think that those top 7 guys are all guys that you want the ball in their hands with a game on the line. And you can kind of put them wherever you want, honestly. Like if someone's like, hey, you have Russell Wilson or Justin Herbert way too low, that's fair. They're superstar quarterbacks. Like that's all right. I get the take. But that's my one tier right there. And then a few honorable mentions because I think some people probably will not like that I have Kyler Murray at 10. Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr. I get the problems with Kyler. Trust me, I'm really concerned about it too. And I think that you could easily substitute one of these guys in there. The reason that I opted to go with Kyler Murray at 10 is because I think Kyler Murray's tools are very obviously better than all 3 of these guys' tools. And I don't really think it's close. And I'm kind of putting him ahead of them more on upside than anything. But I understand if you're like, hey, Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, or Derek Carr have, better pedigrees and do not have a lot of the leadership questions that Kyler Murray does. But I think Kyler Murray's tools are stupid. So that is my top 10.
I think that's a solid top 10. We have the exact same players in our top 10, which shows consistency. I'm going to go through my top 10 quarterbacks, 10-1. Here we go. 10 Kyler, 9 Burrow, 8 Stafford, gap, 7 Herbert, very small gap, 6 Brady, 5 Russ, 4 Lamar, 3 Rodgers, 2 Allen, number 1 Patrick Mahomes. Now, I really want to put Justin Herbert in that top tier. I really do. But for me, I just haven't seen enough yet to where I'm like, okay, he can be the consistent guy, consistent enough throughout the entire game to be able to get those wins that those other guys are doing. I think by the end of this season, we'll be throwing he'll be up in there, and I will get rid of that really small gap that I have. But I was like, okay, I don't want to put him in the same tier as Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. I just don't see him there yet. The other gap, because when I'm looking at the other players, I have Stafford, Burrow, Kyler. My honorable mention, the only guy that I was really considering was Derek Carr, but I was like, I don't think he's really there yet. So I like those players that I have. Stafford, Burrow, Kyler. I definitely want Stafford at the top. I considered putting Kyler at 9 over Burrow just because his ability to scramble and run. But, Burrow has the leadership. Kyler has the mobility. What do you value a little bit more? I chose the leadership. I think it's a little bit more. I think it's a lot more important. But Kyler's running ability is just so fantastic that I ended up going with Burrow there. But Stafford over Burrow. Why? I think Stafford's got just the consistency. He's shown it a little bit longer. It's not because of the Super Bowl victory. I've had Stafford right at around number 8 quarterback in the NFL for probably about 6 years. So it's a very consistent spot for him. He plays very consistent. He goes in there. He works hard, and he gets things done. Even when he's playing on the Lions, he was still winning games that they probably shouldn't have been winning. But into the top, 6, the top tier. I think there's only one player here where he has to be in a certain spot, and that's Patrick Mahomes. I think there's no doubt in my mind that he's number 1. I don't think there's a question whatsoever. Number 2, you can put Rodgers, you can put Allen. I don't really mind either of those. The reason why I put Allen over Rodgers is that mobility. I think they can do Rodgers maybe can do slightly more with his arm, in the intermediate, even like in the shorter deep routes and in the short ball game. Josh Allen obviously has a little bit more arm strength, but his mobility is just fantastic. And Aaron Rodgers doesn't have the leadership. There's just kind of so he's a weird dude, I would say. It's weird to follow Aaron Rodgers. But at the same time, he's fantastic back-to-back MVP. So, I had to put him in his top 3. I'll finish off talking about Lamar, but Russ versus Brady, I think they're both fantastic. I think Brady and Russ have done very similar, other than when Russ got hurt, very similar over the last couple of seasons. The issue is Russell Wilson's supporting cast is significantly worse, or has been significantly worse than all of these other quarterbacks over the last couple of seasons. Like Russell Wilson is going out there with bottom tier offensive line, doesn't have a good running back. I mean, Chris Carson's been fine, but Chris Carson's
Chris Carson hasn't been on the field.
That's also true. So it ends up becoming Penny and, just Travis Homer, just random guys. Was like, okay, they're not very good. And then the defense isn't good. And he's just basically going in there and going into shootouts. And I just feel like he's been so undervalued. And everyone sees like, oh, Russell Wilson, how come he only does really well at the beginning of the season? It's like, oh, because Chris Carson ends up getting hurt at about week 5. And it's impossible for any quarterback to go out there and throw for 500 yards and 4 touchdowns every week of the season, which is what it seems like he does every year, because he comes in and he's like, all right, guys, this is what we're doing. And, we're all going to, I think his leadership, I think he's the best leader at the quarterback position in the NFL. I think it is wildly underrated, his ability to get people on track. I think the number 2 is Brady, for other people, but like the way that he just gets everyone in line, it's unbelievable. Like I watch Russell Wilson. I don't like Russell Wilson. I think he's really annoying. He's super corny, but it works. All right. The corniness, somehow he gets it done. Like if you've got DK Metcalf, like not whining to you every play, because everyone is going to see this year, DK Metcalf is going to be crying every play on the sideline. Gino, why didn't you throw me the ball? Drew Lock, come on, you got to hit me right there. Like Russell Wilson's like, come on, let's all just like, namaste. And, let's just get into it. So that's why I put him over Brady. Now, Lamar Jackson is going to be the most controversial one, I think, on this list at number 4. And the reason why I have him there is because Lamar Jackson is unlike anybody else in the NFL. He is the entire offense. He goes out there and he is the team's number 1 rusher. I mean, he's probably the best runner of the football. Maybe you can argue Derrick Henry in the NFL. Then you look at his passing, and a lot of people look at Lamar Jackson's passing and they think he's not very good. Lamar Jackson has a very solid deep ball. He is good in the intermediate routes, and he's good in the short routes. Is he as accurate as Brady? No. But the thing about Lamar Jackson is he doesn't have to be. If you have legs like Lamar and you are that much of a threat like no quarterback in the history of the game has ever presented to NFL defenses, you are allowed to be less accurate than other people because he still makes plays. He goes out there and he hits guys while he's on the run. He goes out there on 3rd down. And the problem is he is being completely held back by his offensive coordinator. It is atrocious what Greg Roman does to him, because Greg Roman goes in there and he's like, okay, it's 3rd down. You know what Greg Roman calls every 3rd down and 1? He goes, Lamar Jackson, we're going to run a PA bootleg out to the right sideline. What we're going to do is we're going to throw Patrick Ricard in your flats. He's your first read. Patrick Ricard, Mr. 330-pound former defensive tackle. I like Project Pat. He's a good blocker. Do not throw this man the ball. Then what you're going to have is you're going to have Miles Boykin running a little bit of a crossing route over the middle of the field. If you guys don't know who Miles Boykin is, that's precisely my point. Miles Boykin is not good. I believe he's probably wide receiver number 7 on the Pittsburgh Steelers depth chart right now. All right, he went out there, not very good, out of Notre Dame. Then they say, okay, well, here's Hollywood Brown. But Hollywood Brown is also 5'9". He weighs probably 115 pounds. He's going to run a curl route, and he's got to out-physical somebody to get positioning. And then it's like, okay, Mark Andrews. Here's Mark Andrews. He's running the corner. Every single defender goes, Mark Andrews is running a corner route right here. 3 guys guard him. And you're like, oh, what is Lamar Jackson supposed to do? And then he tries to pick it up. And maybe he throws the crossover to Miles Boykin, and it hits him in the hands, drops it. That is exactly how it happens. Watch him, any 2-point conversion, it's the rollout to the right. It's horrible. It doesn't work. But Lamar Jackson is best when he is doing his own thing. We saw the Cleveland Browns game last year. Myles Garrett comes free off the edge. Lamar Jackson, gives him a little shimmy, steps back, rolls back, steps back, rolls back, steps back, rolls back. It's about 30 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Just throws an absolute dart down the field. Mark Andrews in the end zone because he was able to buy that kind of time. Nobody else buys time like Lamar Jackson. And if they do, they end up throwing the ball in a very risky situation. But the thing about Lamar Jackson is if he buys time, a lot of time he's moving forward. A lot of other quarterbacks like Russell Wilson, he buys time, he's moving backwards and he's able to make that throw. Lamar Jackson is moving forward, which causes more stress on the defense and puts defenders in a very difficult situation where they go, okay, do I try and tackle Lamar Jackson? Which, spoiler alert to any defensive back, not a good idea. Lamar Jackson is about to make a lot of money off of making defensive backs look atrocious. Or do I cover the Mark Andrews or whoever is in the flats and say, hey, Lamar, hit this guy. You only get 8 yards. A lot of times they end up covering it. And Lamar Jackson goes, thank you, 25 yards. And he is like, I swear, every time he takes off, it's just like, oh, yeah, he either gets the first down or he just gets to the next level. He gets a few yards. He doesn't break 80-yard touchdowns or anything like that. It is breaks it, doesn't get touched, slides, or goes out of bounds. And it's unbelievable. Nobody else in the NFL plays like that. It's super unique. And so I understand if people put guys ahead of him because it is so unique. But if you're going to ask offensive coordinators, if you're going to ask defensive players, what guy do you not want to go against? Lamar Jackson is one of the top of those lists. Like, I think guys would probably rather even go against Rodgers than Lamar because at least Rodgers, you just got to defend the arm. It's tough, but you just got to defend the arm. Lamar Jackson is, he can throw a deep ball. He can hit guys infield 70 yards down the field. But also, even if you have good coverage, as the Tennessee Titans in the 2021 NFL playoffs in the first round, he's going to take off for a 40-plus yard rushing touchdown because you had good coverage and didn't put out a spy, and he's gone. That's what Lamar Jackson's for.
And I think that a lot of people don't like that too because, I have Lamar over Herbert, and I think that's one, and over Russell Wilson. I think some people might not like that. But I tallied this, and you brought it up. I put, does this guy have a good coordinator / team or not? Lamar is a very obvious no. Lamar has a terrible coordinator. Greg Roman is abysmal at calling plays. He is probably the most ineffective pass play caller in the NFL and has been for quite some time. Great in the run game. Amazing, astonishing, wonderful in the run game. But he is so bad in the passing game. And you look where all of Lamar's scrutiny is. It's in the passing game. And he has a lot of tools. So I put a no for him. For Herbert, I kind of put a question mark because Joe Lombardi hasn't been there long enough. He was really good in New Orleans, but he was also behind Sean Payton. He's not really the number one guy there in terms of being the play caller. So I kind of had a question mark. Difference, Lamar has had way more success in his career. Justin Herbert has not, and Justin Herbert has had a better supporting cast. Though I don't want to knock Herbert. Like, Herbert's also not really had the best O-line, and Herbert hasn't had the best defense at times, and there's been a lot of injuries, so I do understand. And then there's Russell Wilson, of course not. Matthew Stafford, no, he didn't. Then he did last year, and then he won the Super Bowl. Burrow, pretty good. Not a really good offensive line, but, good coaching. Like, kind of everything else has been solid besides that. Kyler, no, I think Cliff is terrible. He needs to win like one game in December before we start talking about him being an average coach, at least. Dak, no, I don't think so. Kirk, no, I don't think so. Derek Carr, no, I don't think so. So those guys, like, that's why they're kind of in borderline, is because they haven't really been in good situations as well. So I think it's good to bring up not only for Lamar, but also some other guys. And then the top 4 guys I had, Mahomes, Allen, Rodgers, Brady, they've all had good coordinators. They've all had good coaching staffs, at least in recent years.
And receivers and weapons.
Yeah. Good supporting cast as well.
Yeah.
But that's probably all I got on the top 10. I think our lists are pretty similar, honestly.